What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, MovieFiles. Elliot back with a brand new out-of-theater reaction / movie review for Saw X. That's right, Saw 10 is 10 of these things. This franchise, come next year, would have been around for 20 years. Mind-boggling. But hey, before I get into my thoughts of this film, let you know if you should check it out. Let's have a conversation in the comments below. Let me know, number one, are you a fan of the franchise? If so, what are your favorites? And of course, once you've seen Saw X, let me know your pros, your cons, favorite moments, least favorite moments, what worked, what didn't work, and let me know your favorite trap of this new movie. And do you want to see more? Let's have those conversations in the comments below. So a couple things up top. Number one, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I can acknowledge that a lot of them, maybe half of them, aren't that good, but I have been a part of this franchise since the very beginning. And again, there's some highs and then some lows. So I would say, as far as my anticipation, kind of in the middle. The trailer was like, oh, that's an interesting angle to take. And I'm a big fan of Tobin Bell and Jigsaw and all the stuff that comes with this world. So there was like a mid-level of excitement. And then the second thing I want to address, if you've been on the channel before, I'm obviously not in my setup. I just came back from the theater. I had to go do something at work right quick and print something off. So I apologize for the poor lighting. I'll try to edit around the poor lighting. Hopefully you all can hear me well. We're just making do with what we got, y'all. So let's get into my non-spoiler review of this film. And I want to start off by talking about the director, who's been around since the very beginning of this franchise. Like, he's been the editor of a lot of the films, but he also has directed 2 of the movies, and it shows in this movie because he brought it back to the simple thing about this franchise. We have someone that's trying to change people, right? We get back to the bare minimums of what I find to be very interesting about the movie, and I felt like the director tapped into that simplicity, which really worked for me. Now, inherently, with this being a prequel set between Saw 1 and 2, there are limits to the story, but I don't find that to be like a negative. I actually think that that's a positive for this film because it allows a story to, again, get back to the basics. This isn't there. One of the things about Saw like 4, 5, 6, and 7, which actually I like 4, but with the rest of the franchise, the timeline is just so messy. It gets so convoluted. They try to do things where it's like, oh, this mysterious character has been around since the very beginning, so we're going to just kind of retcon that and throw them into the mix. It's like there's none of that with this film because, again, there's parameters. There's only a certain amount of time we can play that, and again, normally you'd be like, oh man, that kind of restricts the idea process or expanding the lore. It's the opposite. It actually works to the advantage of this particular film. Another thing that completely separates this movie from the others is, number one, the main character, Jigsaw, John Kramer, right? He is the big bad villain of these movies. In most of the movies, all of the movies, he's the supporting character, but not this time around. He is the star, and it makes it 10 times better because it's more of an interesting, and it's a more personal, more in-depth character study of this very villainous, well-known, iconic character by the name of Jigsaw. Tobin Bell just knows this character through and through and plays John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, so well. He gives so much more depth to the performance, and I think this is probably his best performance of the character in the entire franchise, and probably one of the more stronger, more detailed, more complex, layered human performances of any of the characters of this entire series. There's this level of sympathy that this film plays with that you have to sometimes remind yourself, wait a minute, this is Jigsaw. This is the bad guy. I shouldn't be rooting for him right now because he's literally sick. Yes, he's sick in the head for the traps he does, but he's also sick and dying. So they play to that sympathy card so well for me in this film. And seeing this, terrible icon be played. This is a game being played on John, right? So there's, again, that level of just sympathy and a level of the personal side of the story. And again, having Jigsaw be the lead character, who would have thought that would have been a good idea for this movie? But that really plays well for me in this film. Also, the inclusion of Amanda really adds more depth and understanding to the very complex relationship that she has with John, which really worked for me. But of course, at least I'll just speak for myself. I go to these movies too, obviously, I'm a big horror fan. I like to see what they're going to do, but the traps, right? Let's talk a little bit about them without spoiling anything. I thought they were great in this film. Some moved me, like literally moved me in my seats more than others, but I'll just say this, there were some traps that really kind of got under my skin. Literally, there's one that, and you all have seen the poster, probably seen the trailer, and they've been hyping it up for the last few weeks. The eye trap is pretty trippy. pretty gnarly. The trap that just involves a person hanging in the air. Anytime people are breaking bones, that just gets under my skin. And then there's one involving a particular neck. I'll just say that. Those are some traps that I really enjoyed. And just speaking to the traps of in general, without giving too much away, they were really well thought out. They're probably the most connected to the main character, John himself, but also the people involved. And speaking of people involved, the doctor that kind of set up the whole con of John removing the cancer and all that stuff, that particular character might just be and possibly is the most straight up despicable, just evil character of this entire franchise. And that is due to really good direction of that character, really good written scenes for the character, and also acting. Like, again, when you see the film, the main doctor is a terrible individual, and you're just like, you know what? You kind of get what you deserve, if you know what I mean. So transitioning and getting to some things that just didn't work for me in this film with my criticisms here. Look, this is 20 years, right? 2024, it'll be 20 years since the first Saw came out, and it's a little bit of me, but also I think it's kind of inherently within the franchise when you have it running so long. It gets a little repetitive. It gets very predictable, which makes it a little bit stale and a little bit like you kind of know what's going to happen next. So it kind of weighs down some of the more impactful moments because, again, if you've seen all the Saws like I have, you're like, yeah, I've seen that, done that. We're doing kind of the same thing. So that kind of bogs down the feeling of going into this film. It's like you kind of know where it's headed. I personally felt the runtime. This is the longest film in the franchise, and you feel that. One of my issues with the runtime is the marketing, right? If you've seen the trailer, they kind of give away one of the major, I don't want to say major twist, but they kind of give away the main plot, which is John thinks that he's meeting these people that's going to help him cure his cancer, but obviously it's all a hoax, it's all a con. Again, that's not a spoiler, it's literally in the trailer, and I think they should have kept that from the trailer because the first half of the film, I'm talking about the first 20, 25 minutes, the trailer kind of summarized it. Like, I think we could have just had one or two scenes to kind of emphasize, again, the sympathy card, understanding the situation at hand, but a lot of that stuff just kind of bogged down the film for me. It kind of slowed down the pacing when we get all those setup moments, which again, are definitely necessary, but it just made the first half feel slow for me personally. And I think some of that staleness, if I want to call it that, is due to the fact that inherently this franchise is known for being like a one location, right? Obviously the first one is very synonymous with being in one location in the bathroom, and that is the same thing with this one. We're in one warehouse for the majority of when the traps are taking place. Normally within the franchise, we have like some side plots where we're like going from the main location to a police station to an apartment. Like there's like a fluidity to the film where like you feel like you're moving around and it keeps the pacing going. But in this one, we're so like focused on one location that it makes the pacing and it makes it feel like things are kind of slowing down. So I wish there were maybe one or maybe two more locations to kind of speed things up. And I'll also mention my last few points. There's some performances that I thought were just not the best. Like some characters were just too heightened for my personal opinion, and some of them were just like the expressions like, dude, you're about to lose your arm. I need you to be a little bit more scared in this moment. So I thought some of the more supporting characters just didn't deliver the goods in the acting department. Now, this is more of a franchise issue, but it definitely stands out in this film for me, where John is, number one, he's out of his element. He's literally in New Mexico, so he doesn't really know anyone, doesn't know where to go, how to get things. So that's an issue. Remember that. So when I bring up he is kind of new, he's kind of out of his element, the fact that this film shows this man who is dying, by the way, and has so little time, so little strength, but he's able to do certain things in this film, this kind of made me think, well, what is going on here? How is he able to get that up there and have all this time to do that? Again, it's a franchise issue, but it really stood out like a sore thumb for me in this particular film. And then last point I want to mention, the last 5 minutes, without spoiling anything to me, just felt kind of flat, very dull, very anticlimactic. Again, if you've seen all the previous 9 Saw films, for better or for worse, so how you feel about those individual movies, they tend to have like an ending that's just like, oh man, that was really kind of messed up how it all wrapped up. But this one is just like, okay, bye, thanks for coming. It was just very anticlimactic. So before I give you my score, let you know if it's worth checking out, especially if you're a Saw fan or even not a Saw fan. I want to take the time to thank you for watching the video up until this point. If you haven't already, consider hitting the like button, sharing today's video, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and consider subscribing to the channel. Overall, as a fan of this franchise at the very beginning, this is easily one of the best films because it's personal, it's simple, it stays to the basics. Some great traps. Again, I mentioned some of the logical things, some of the performance performances didn't work for me. But overall, again, as a fan of this franchise, this is one of the better ones in the entire series. I'm going to give Saw X a 3.5 out of 5. And again, if you are a fan of the franchise, I would recommend you all give it a watch. And if you're new to the franchise, you don't have to do a ton of homework. Like, of course, you want to know some of the basics, but I think this is one of the more welcoming sequels or prequels that can bring someone that hasn't seen any of them and know what's going on in this movie. So again, 3.5 out of 5 for me for Saw X. So again, that's my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today's review. Sorry again for the bad lighting, but I thank you. Again, before we wrap it up, consider hitting the like button, consider sharing today's video, leaving your thoughts in the comments. What worked, what didn't work? Do you want to see more? I'll be open to it depending on the story and the direction, all that stuff, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, consider subscribing to the channel and helping me get to my next milestone of 60,000 subscribers. You all are awesome. Hope you're staying safe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.